Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lit Chick on a Mighty Blaze. I'm Jenna Paone, and I'm so thrilled to welcome the fabulous Alli Frank and Asha Youmans here today to celebrate the release of their new book, Never Meant to Meet You. I almost said nice to meet you for some reason, but I think that's because I was just going to say nice to meet you because we're meeting today for the first time. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so thrilled. I love this book. It's a great book about female friendship, relationships, figuring out who you are, and transitions in life, which I think we've all gone through a lot of transitions in these past few years, and we're all recalibrating our identities and the cultural context of so many relationships in our lives. It was such a great book and such a heartwarming read on so many levels. Before we get into questions on the book, I'm just going to give everyone a brief intro of who you are, and then we will get started and you'll be in the hot seat. Alli Frank has worked in education for more than 20 years, from boisterous public high schools to small progressive private schools. A graduate of Cornell and Stanford University, Alli lives in the Pacific Northwest with her husband and two daughters. With Asha Youmans, she is the co-author of Tiny Imperfections and is a contributing essayist in the anthology Moms Don't Have Time To, a quarantine anthology. Asha Youmans spent 2 decades teaching elementary school students. A graduate of the University of California, Berkeley, Asha lives in the Pacific Northwest with her husband and two sons. With Alli Frank, she is the co-author of Tiny Imperfections. Their latest novel, Never Meant to Meet You, is a riotously funny, emotionally real look at race and religion, love and heartache, and the realities of parenting through it all. Booklist calls Never Meant to Meet You a sparkling story of unlikely friendship. And in a starred review, Publishers Weekly says the characters feel like real people with racial and religious identities that inform their worldviews but don't define them. It's an impressive feat, sure to move romance fans and women's fiction readers alike. Ladies, welcome and congratulations again on the release of Never Meant to Meet You.
So funny hearing all that. I'm like, who are those people? Because basically we like do laundry and cook meals.
I hear that, but you know what? I that's why I do it, because you spend so much time writing and on your own and doing the labor in the background, and people don't see that. So I firmly believe that everybody should hear their praises sung right off the bat, especially when you've done something and completed this novel and achieved this big goal in your lives. You gotta get a little praise for that. So here we go. We're gonna heap it on you today, and that's the whole point of this chat today. It's to talk about how wonderful you are. So in that light, can you tell us a little bit about Never Meant to Meet You and the basic premise? Don't give us any spoilers, but just a little overview of what the book is about. And what inspired you to write it?
You're going to go first on that one.
I'll go first.
What is our book about?
Our book is slightly semi-autobiographical, meaning that, there's a Black woman and a Jewish woman, which we are, and you can tell which one is which. And they form a friendship that helps them get through some hard times. And we decided to write this book during the pandemic, which was a hard time for everyone.
Yep.
And to put our feelings down on paper about how we supported each other and how our families supported us, how our communities supported us, and how we got through some of the grief that we experienced, going through 2 years of disappointments, isolation, some sadness, relief at any human contact we get to have.
Right.
We used a different venue or a different way of expressing that. We didn't use a pandemic in this story. We used true episodes of grief for our two main characters. But it was a way for us to get out some of those feelings. There were feelings that I wasn't sure I didn't even know I had. Alli sort of had this vague idea, and we were talking about it, and I kind of thought, am I grieving though? Am I grieving? Is that the word I would use?
Yeah.
And it turned out that Yes, that was the correct word. I was grieving a lot of things that were lost
Yep.
for me during the pandemic. Graduations for my children, proms, watching them go out into the world and have a dynamic start to their careers. A lot of that came to a halt, and I didn't realize that I was holding on to some sadness from that. These two characters really helped us get over those feelings and work through them.
I love that.
Both Asha and I rely so heavily on humor in our own lives that at the time I was reading a lot of David Sedaris, and I was doing his master class and pretending I was at school so I didn't have to help my kids who were like at school 10 feet away. I'm like, look, me too, guy in tweed coat. But one of my favorite episodes of the masterclass was like, when do things become funny? Are there ever things that will never become funny?
Yep.
So here we are in this pandemic and this in grieving and grief, and everyone has some type of loss. And this question of, will this ever be funny?
Yeah.
Is the feeling of grief ever humorous? And what's the place of humor
Mm-hmm.
in that? And so that's a big question for us that we worked on as we wrote this book, which is an interesting take at looking at different grief, but
Yep.
all through humor and what's the place of it in the context of a difficult emotion.
Yeah, one thing that struck me about the book really is that, you know, it's really about healing. Like, it's about grief, but it's about healing and how you heal from these various, you know, each character has a big set of grief that she is carrying with her throughout this book, and or he, you know, there are obviously some male characters, but the women are front and center. And that it's so lovely. You do it so in such a lovely way. You do it in such a gentle and hopeful way, and in a way that really it sort of gives people the tools of like how you recover. I love that the emphasis on transformation and recovery and healing is really present in this book from day one. Like, even though bad things happen, very bad things, the worst things happen in this book, and yet it's ultimately comforting. And it is a great book to read, to know that, like, yes, there is some light on the other side. There will be a time when I find this funny, or when something is funny, and you see that right from off the bat with Margette and Noah and their friendship, and even how you know, I'm not going to give too many spoilers, but Noah suffers a great loss, and Asha is there for her, even though they're
Asha's there for me.
I'm sorry, and Margette is for her. Even though
You do it all the time.
All the time.
well, because I want to ask you, this is, you said, semi-autobiographical, and you are a Black woman and a white Jewish woman. And Margette, Asha, I don't want to make any assumptions, but Margette is Christian in the book. I would assume, or maybe just sense, that perhaps there's Christianity in your background. So you are two women who have completely different backgrounds, and yet clearly you are not just friends but collaborators. And this book really is about how do people of different backgrounds and origins find their way to each other, develop really close bonds, and ultimately love and care for one another like family. So I would love to hear a little bit about your friendship, how you met, and what inspired you to work together, and then how you decided to take that template and bring it into fiction, and how that process went.
So funny. The first thing that comes to mind is ignorance is bliss. I mean, we worked in the school together.
Yep.
And private school together.
Awesome.
And we were both on the admissions team together. And we found on that admissions team that we had a really similar sense of humor about humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It is comical how serious private schools take the process of looking at 4-year-old kids.
As a mother who just put her 2-year-old in a Montessori school, yes, I had to like fill out a like 8-page essay. Like it was like worse than my college applications. And I was like, she is 18 months old. Like what?
This week she like comments, not sure about next week. So, but we found this very common sense of humor. But our lives went on. We were in the school. Asha left. I left a little later. And I had an idea for our first book, Tiny Imperfections, that I thought would be a great story. And the essence is there's a Black director of admissions who holds the key to the kingdom that all the white people want in. I mean, it's, very much a reverse story. And all I knew of Asha's writing, honestly, was narrative report cards that I would read. And Asha was phenomenal at writing about kids in schools in report cards. The only thing Asha knew about me as a writer literally was like emails I would send.
A lot of emails.
Too many emails.
That was it. So, but I love this idea for a story. So I called Asha up and I said, hey, do you want to have coffee? This was pre-Spring Awakening. I'm like, and let's talk about race. I mean, now I cringe. How I put that. I think I said race in schools. Might have just said race.
And I picked up the phone and said, who is this?
It was not eloquent nor pretty. But we had coffee, and 14 months later, our first book was picked up by Penguin Random House. But
that's quick. That's a very quick timeline. People distinguish for years. That is speedy.
It was quick, but Asha and I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately, that there was a lot of luck in that her strengths were my weaknesses and vice versa. But I have a new take on it that I've been thinking a lot, is that the thing that was exactly the same for the two of us is we had the same work ethic around writing. We did not want to disappoint each other. And the mission of our writing, which I'm going to let Asha share, we both feel it in every bone of our body. So those three things, I think, really ultimately has led to our success.
Asha, I want to hear that mission of your writing, because that's always one of the questions I ask is, what do you want readers to take away from this book and your work in general? And I love when people start with the mission. I love when people say, this is the thing I want to make. I have something I want to say or explore or put out into the universe, and this is how I want to do it. So talk me through your mission.
Well, I would say that, I think of it a little bit like a middle school dance.
Nice.
There are, often boys on this side, there's girls on this side, and no one's dancing in the middle. We know that there are people over there to dance with. We're learning about them. They're learning about us, but no one's bridging that gap. And Alli and I, before we were a brand, before we were writers, before we are career women as authors, we really want to continue to work towards being that bridge.
Love that.
In as many capacities as possible. Sometimes it's difficult to ask tough questions about race, about class, about privilege, about education. We want to be safe spaces for people to ask those questions that they may be fearful of asking. One of the things that we would say in school when we were working together was dare to be wrong to our students. Dare to be wrong. You learn from mistakes. But we have failed to continue to offer that same grace to adults. And we're supposed to be lifelong learners. We're supposed to continue to learn in life. And if we're afraid to do that because someone's going to slap our hand back if we ask a question that's not worded correctly, like, hey, you want to talk about race and have coffee? Like Alli did, right?
Right.
Then we would never get to this beautiful place.
I love that. And you see that in this writing. You see that very much in this book. At one point, your main character, Margette, is dealing with Noah's daughter is in a situation where she sees a disabled man and she has some questions, and Margette kind of guides her over, and she has this wonderful narrative kind of thought in the book, which I won't share it explicitly, but it basically is just that the best way to learn is to ask the questions, be prepared for some complicated or perhaps difficult answers, and take it in and figure out how you can adjust or learn or contribute and contribute positively. Right. And that is something I see very much in this book. And it's interesting because I do feel, we are in this time where people are rightfully so very frustrated that people aren't maybe perfect yet or getting everything right all the time. And that is also very valid. There is a lot of there are histories of in years and decades and centuries of oppression and inequality and white supremacy and religious supremacy and all kinds of things that are very, very valid. And I never want to take away from that, because that is, we have to confront the reality of who we are and who we are as a country, as people, and a global community. However, I do believe that real change starts with two people talking. And that's what this book is about. It's about two people who start talking, and it sets off a chain reaction in their lives and causes them to change as individuals, and it changes the lives of everyone around them. And that to me is the best kind of book, because that is a real template for change. So in crafting that, I'm so interested. It's such an interesting choice, and I think a great one, that you chose to have just one point of view character, Margette. So often I find with writer duos or trios, now I've interviewed several pairs, that one person takes one narrative voice and the other takes the other narrative voice, and then they weave them together. But that doesn't seem like this was the case in your particular process. Can you tell me a little bit more about your process and about how you physically go about writing the book? Tell me how it works. Does it start with you two brainstorming and coming up with an outline? Do you alternate chapters, or does one of you take a full pass and then the other edits? Talk me through your process as collaborators.
Well, first I'm laughing because Asha and I aren't really sure that individually we'd be good authors. Like often co-authors, right? They're two strong individual authors. We're like,
Yep. 1
+ 1 = 1 in our in our world. First I want to state that the two, again, with back to the mission of our writing, but it plays into how we write, is that Asha and I firmly believe that, there's so much literature and entertainment out there about the trauma of people.
Yep.
And that's meant to teach
Yep.
the history of a people. And that's all valid and real.
Yep.
But that learning can happen through humor and joy.
Yes.
And for people to understand that whether, the Black community or the Jewish community or, any minority community is not all made up of angst and trauma. There's great, amazing joy. And it's just as important to learn and understand the joy of that community, because if it's always that you just understand the drama and the trauma, it can create an imbalance of, feeling badly for people rather than embracing people in the wholeness. And so because Asha and I love humor for learning, because 1 + 1 = 1. And because we both, and we hope you got this in the book, because there's race and there's religion. It's a part of of each woman. It's not their whole identity. At the end of the day, humanity is the identity, and that's the other thing that Asha and I really believe. So truly, we write every word together because we want to lead with humanity. We don't want to lead with ownership over individual characters or individual voice, but that we are writing together about all of these people. Now, again, we each have our strengths and weaknesses. I have like the emotional depth of a chipmunk. But I have a spinning mind. So I really am the 10,000 foot person, weaving the whole story all the way to the end. Asha gets very concerned about what I spend my time thinking about. So I'll get it down ugly, so ugly. And then all these notes for Asha, like a couple chapters, send them to her. And she just goes deep on the characters. And my favorite example from this book. So Asha has sons, I have daughters. Yeah. And Darius, the teenage son, when I first tried to write the dialogue, I wrote it like girls. With so much long, elaborate. And she's like, boys don't talk like this.
No.
Particularly teenage boys. So we probably lost like 60 pages of my dialogue. I was like, no, grunt. Yeah,
And it was very, very realistic. I do have to say, actually, I think this book is so true to life in like so many different ways. Like the fact, like I just write you had me at them watching the Real Housewives at the funeral. Cause like, sorry, without giving too, but like, you bring in things that I'm like, that's exactly what I would do. Like that's what I would want to do. I would want to go. And I'm like you, where I also prefer to learn through joy. I have enough trauma in my life and in my past that like, I don't find it, I read and watch film and TV as a means of enjoyment. And of course, that doesn't mean I don't ever read anything that is, maybe a little bit difficult, but my preference is for things that are maybe a little more joyful, a little more, comforting, a pleasant experience. And I think there's no lack of depth in this for this book being that. I think that's the whole point of the Lit Chick series, is to show people how much depth and emotional breadth is within literature that tends to be dismissed as books for women.
Well, and I also have to say on the every word. So Asha and I read our book. We don't know this about other co-authors, but we read. Okay, Asha reads.
I read
because she has such a good voice. Our book out loud probably 6-8 times before it goes in, just as the like the rough draft manuscript, because we believe and are dedicated to each other that we have to agree on every single word that's in the book.
I love that.
We dramatically, it's like acting it out and making sure it feels like real life.
Yes.
It's kind of fun too.
Absolutely. And that also is a very interesting thing, because it strikes me that you also, probably because you've both been, are educators, you have published very quickly, and you have, published your second book very quickly. So that leads me to believe that at some point, though, even though you're so meticulous and you read every word, you also know how to finish, and you know how to complete a project and get it out the door. Is that something that you help each other with? Does that desire to not disappoint the other? Is that what kind of
like having a work spouse? That person you can depend on, but again, that you don't want to disappoint. But we have the same thoughts. Like, we'll get a deadline, and if we're not at least 2 days before that deadline,
we're such nerds.
We haven't done it right. School has been everything. We've been through school, and we were educators.
Yep.
Our parents are educators.
We were grade grubbing dorks.
For
all
sure.
of it.
All and just claim it all too. Love to be all of those things. I love to be my brown nosing self. And it helps us make sure that we stay on task with each other.
We want an A+.
I like that. I want the gold star too. I always want an A+. I want to like check that off and get it. Like, yeah, I my mom is a teacher, was a teacher, long career in education. And, that never leaves you, that sort of feeling of like, well, I have to get it. I have to get it done. Like I got to finish the report, even if I'm finishing it while I'm running into class, I got to get it and I got to get my A and make sure that, overachievers make the best authors, I think.
Well, it's also, again, a way the pendulum has swung in education. But, for kids who grow into adults, like Asha and I, academics were also our form of sport or competition, right? Yep. So we're competitive in the world of nerdiness.
You were not going to see me winning any track races, jumping over any hurdles, shooting hoops. No, that was not me.
But you got 100% on the math test.
But I showed up with I was still reading my book on the way to my chem exams for sure.
Yeah. So, we are, we're nerdy, but we're competitive.
I like that. So what was the moment then? Like I am writing my first novel right now, but I've been a songwriter for the past 12 years and I write collaboratively. I have a work wife that she and I, she, in our case, like we, she's a little further on in her career in some ways than I am. And like, we have different skill sets that we bring to the table and we work very similarly to you two, it sounds. And we had a moment where we looked at, like we were just hanging out and then we looked at each other and at the same time, we both said, we have to do the blah, 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 blah. Like we were like, we have to do this. And we both said the project in the same way. It was like, we were just like, we said it the exact same thing. And it's something we're working on right now, which is a pop album for girls, specifically middle school age girls, that's designed to help them be confident and empower them and all kinds of things. But we said, we should
send that to me ASAP.
Like, oh yeah, we will.
Sixth grader.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll send you some songs for when we get on. So like literally, like we looked at each other and we said, we have to write a pop album for girls. Did you ever have that moment where you looked at each other and you transitioned from friends to now friends and collaborators? And if so, what was that moment like?
I think we have a bunch of those moments. Sometimes we'll be editing and we'll struggle over how to clean up a section, and all of a sudden Alli this is her. I know. Yep. And she'll say it and I'll say it at the same time, maybe using a few different words.
Yep.
But that's when you know the magic is happening and you're on the right track.
Yep.
If you both feel the same way in those moments.
Yep.
I think there wasn't just one for us, there continue to be those moments for us.
Yeah, but I have one distinct one for myself. It's sort of at the opposite end. So I made a really big when Tiny Imperfections came out.
Okay.
That had to do with film and television and optioning and all that. I mean, it was a big mistake. And I really had this moment of this might be the end of us. And Asha's level of immediate forgiveness, because it was a business partner's mistake. Asha's level of forgiveness was immediate and was so from the heart that's when I knew, like, okay, we can go the distance, because a lot of people can go the distance when it's great.
Yeah.
But, the majority falls apart when one person makes a really unfortunate call. And Asha didn't even blink. And for me, that was that moment.
That's great. And this is
I just said, well, wait, you just got to wait a little bit because my mistake's coming too.
It hasn't come yet, though. I'm still waiting.
It's coming.
We all make those big mistakes, right? And we kick ourselves for them later. But that's a really beautiful thing, and that is probably more than anything the cornerstone to a really healthy relationship is that ability to forgive. And you see that again throughout this book, and the idea of what are you holding on to, and what does delaying that forgiveness do to you as the person who is delaying the forgiveness, and how does that keep you from moving forward? And it's easier said than done, because a lot of things are really hard to forgive. And again, it's a conversation we're having, rightfully as a society right now. And in looking at individual people in a book, in looking at characters in a book that are doing this in our own lives, I do hope that we're able to take some lessons for that and apply them to our own lives. And hopefully, again, that microcosm then becomes the macrocosm. I think that that's, the hope. But so other than that, so this is your second book together, right? You had Tiny Imperfections. What has changed for your working relationship and your friendship from that time to now? Have you, was it different writing this book? Like, because the first time is that, that heady sort of, okay, let's fly by the seat of our pants and do this. Was it different this time? Was it, either easier or maybe a little more challenging? And if so, how did you adjust?
Well, for me, writing Tiny Imperfections was so exciting. And then the Hollywood stuff came with it. And, I got to.
Just so we're clear, it also died with it.
It did die with it.
That's the name of the game, though. I got to say, I could tell you how many best-selling, 40 book authors that have not had their big TV moment.
COVID killed it.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I got to put on the fake eyelashes and get my hair did and do all that fun stuff. And then it kind of was like, okay, then the next week and the next week. And I realized, hey, that's not even what I'm doing this for. It's the writing I want to keep doing. It's the work that Alli and I still do with students on during our non-writing time to push this message of learning empathy through joy that I want to be able to keep doing. And if the writing lets us both do that, then that really became my focus and the special part of making the next book. We wrote the first book and it debuted during COVID. So we were together and out in coffee shops with Tiny Imperfections and bookstores and all over the place.
You mean while we were
writing it? But then this book, we had to write in isolation.
Yeah, we were together. We were in our bubble.
We had to decide that our own small bubble was going to be the two of us, our spouses, and our kids. And everyone else kind of had to be on the secondary level for us. That was the kind of commitment that we wanted to give to be able to keep working with each other. And we've got another book waiting in the wings, and that one's even been written in a different way. We traveled, took some time away from our families to get some focused time to write that book side by side again. So I think that each one has taught us we're able to pivot and shift, just as we had to do during the pandemic in so many ways. And that if we have to do that for each and every book, we'll figure out how to make it work together.
You guys have such a great attitude. I feel like I need the two of you like in my head when I'm trying to write my stuff, and like just reminding me like you can pivot and shift. Like this is so great. Like I feel like you were like the nicest like voice that could be it's like so lovely and so like encouraging and affirming. And again, you see this in your writing because the book does go into really deep, dark stuff. I mean, you explore the biggest losses people can have, sort of worst fears confirmed in a variety of different ways, in personal lives, in, you know, people's relationships with their children, and like is personal safety for those children and for themselves. You know, there are, you know, deep threats and deep dangers in this book, and yet it's so hopeful, and all of this is so uplifting. How do you maintain that positivity and that hope and that optimism, especially through the last few years that we've had? What's your, you know, that what keeps that going in both of you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I sorry, we just did a bunch of questions for something. I can't remember what it was, but you know, I always go back. There is nothing I like more in life than laughing so hard you're crying.
Yep.
There's no better moment. There's no better therapy. And Asha and I laugh so hard, and trust us, we're plenty inappropriate with each other. And then we figure out how we can use some of that or not in our books. But that hopefulness for me comes out of, at the end of the day, really the best thing in my life doesn't cost anything. I don't have to own it. You know, it's not how my children are doing it. It's just that ability to connect and laugh with someone and be joyful.
Yep.
And that's never waned for the two of us. And I think that's where my feeling of positivity comes from. I mean, I call Asha for 30 seconds of like the most random stuff. You know, it might just be a 90-second conversation, but we both laugh really hard. I'm like, that was better than Xanax.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know.
Yes. We've also had some, you know, the ancestry of women in our lives. It's such a strong foundation. I mean, there's a reason why the two of us are here. Black woman and a Jewish woman, those histories have to include some resilient, capable, hopeful women and men. But those women to birth us into this time and to get us this far. And Alli has a foundation of strength in her background that's enviable, despite all that her family has been through in the past. And the same goes for me. We were raised and were able to be in the company of a lot of no-nonsense, old-fashioned ladies. If you want to get over it, you got to get through it.
Yep. Which is repeated throughout the book.
You know, there's no choice but to live life.
Yeah, what's the option?
Well, this is what we got. It's just as easy for us to decide to be happy as it is to be sad. It takes the same decision. And you know what? Being happy, you don't get as many wrinkles. So that really motivates us.
Well, and I would also say us coming into this writing and putting our, you know, I mean, it's such an intimate act that gets so horrifically judged out into the world. Like the fact that we came into this in our mid 40s. We knew who we were. We knew what we want to say. We're comfortable in our own skin. And so we hope that people love it. But if they don't, we don't love every book. So if others don't love our book, we weren't meant for their bedside table, and that's okay. That is okay, because we have love and friendship in our life, and we're not looking anymore for a lot of outside confirmation. we're pretty solid on our own feet.
Oh my gosh. Alli called me once and said, you gotta look at the reviews. There's a 1-star review on there. The person said we were boring and none of the characters were good. And I was like, really? There's a 5-year-old child in the book. They didn't even like the 5-year-old child?
Who hates a kindergarten teacher?
Who hates a little girl?
Yeah, never read your reviews. Our fabulous producer, Julie Gerstenblatt, who is a wonderful author too, and her debut book is coming out this next spring. She don't read reviews. We're already like doing all of the things with everyone. We're like, don't read the reviews. Don't read the reviews. The reviews are nobody else's. They're not your business. They're other people's business. Your business is writing the book. And, you know, somebody's always going to hate it. Somebody's going to hate it for some stupid reason. They're going to be like, I just didn't like this thing. And it's the same. So I grew up I started out as an actor, and like, it's as simple as, oh, we were really looking for somebody with blonde hair. And then you're like, okay, it really has nothing to do with me. Like, this is like, okay, you wanted somebody with blonde hair. Like, I can't be that person for you. I am a brunette. I'm really sorry about that. But like, that's cool. Like, you know, it has nothing to do with me as, you know, a person. But I do think it also helps to have somebody in the trenches with you. I do think it's a great idea to build your support system and build your, you know, your community. And in that respect, you two are part of Tall Poppies, which is a wonderful organization of authors, and some of our Blaze authors. A lot of them are also Tall Poppies. What's that experience been like for you to join that community?
Well, I'm laughing because because like people are just getting back to traveling, all that stuff, and we have this book coming. We've had a lot of great time via video, but we are, you know, because our first book came out in a pandemic. We wrote our second and third in the midst of it. Like, our relationship with the poppies right now is more like excitement and anticipation to when we get to meet everyone in person. And we kind of can't believe that they really wanted us, because we have zero like connections and relationships in writing other than each other. We're like, we bring nothing to this table other than a really good sense of humor, and we're like fun in person. But they haven't even met us in person yet. So I think our relationship is like excited anticipation. And we find Anne Garvin to be a great fellow humorist.
Yes. And just like we found with the support from Mighty Blaze with Tiny Imperfections, just that uplifting community of women who will say, hey, if you've got an event, if you've got something that I can tell my folks about, let me know. I'll sing it to the heavens with you. It's comforting to have a community that says, we got your back.
Mm-hmm.
We take care of you.
I don't even know you.
Authors are so nice. Like, coming from the entertainment industry, like, it is I'm like, this is way different. Like, you mean these people are nice and they'll talk to me, and like, they'll actually, like, it's great. It really is. It's so important. We're so grateful for everyone who joins us on these chats on A Mighty Blaze, and for our founders, Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt, and, you know, everybody who is out there working hard. We have a huge team. It is a massive team that is assembled, and everybody does a great job. And we would not have it without our fabulous authors. So moving on, I want to talk just about the book a little bit more, and then I'll let you go. Real quick, food plays a central role in this book, which in my mind, all the best books revolve around food, because food plays a big role in my life. And you include some of your prized recipes in the back of this book that appear throughout the narrative. So I'm wondering what the role of food and cooking is in both of your lives, and maybe what is your favorite thing that the other person makes? And is it the recipes that you included here, or is it something else?
I'm going to let Asha answer that one, but I have to tell you one funny thing about the recipes in the back. We forgot to put the amount of flour that goes in the pie crust, and we already had one reader email and say, I really want to make a sweet potato pie, but it doesn't say how much flour. I'm like, how many times do we read that? How many copy editors? We love food. We write and revolve around food. And that is the mistake we made.
It's hard to write down recipes. I could not tell you what my recipes are if you I'm like, I don't know. Like my sister-in-law always asks me to like write it down for her. My husband always asks me to write. He's like, if you write it down, I'll make it. And then like, you don't have to always make it. I'm like, you're just going to make it wrong because like, you gotta feel your way through it. Like, you know,
pie crust without flour. That was some strong work. And from there, I'll let you take it, Asha.
You know, food, water, and shelter. Those are things that humans have to have. It doesn't matter your ethnicity, your race, your class, what country of origin is yours. You have to eat.
Yes.
It's a very simple thing to share, and it's a way to make the very deepest connection with your fellow human. My grandmother, my godmother, my own mother, I learned at their elbows how to cook. And they never measured a thing. I was definitely one of those kids who wanted to write things down and have the right way to do everything. And they would say, you just stop seasoning when your ancestors say it's enough. And I'm like, well, when are they going to say it? Because I don't hear nothing.
The phone's not ringing.
There have been tragedies in my life that I've had to get over, and having food at the table brings family and friends around to support me through those things. So food's been very important to me. I owned a small catering company for a while.
It's your favorite thing in the world to do, cooking.
It's the way that I show care and love for everybody around me. You know, when I had my catering company, Alli would call and say, oh my gosh, I am hosting something for our Seder.
Asha would do my Passover.
I would do brisket. I'm like, okay, so I'm making Jewish food this weekend. Okay, let's see anything. I can do that. When Alli wants something that she knows is gonna put a few pounds on her backside, she calls me for my baked mac and cheese.
So good.
We already have a whole plan to have a party together for her girls when I go and visit her. With Southern food.
I love that.
It's just such an easy way of you're so invited.
So good.
You're so.
But I also want to add. So one of the earliest conversations that Asha and I had in writing, and we've had over and over again, and is a really poignant part in our book moment, is this idea of in coming together, in trying to make your life more colorful and the people that's in it. Look around your dining room table. If everyone at your dining room table looks and lives just like you, what's that message that's being sent to younger generations at your table? What is that saying about how you're living your life? And as you know, that's something we construct in the book. And so we've had a lot of conversation, yes, around food, but also around just the ambiance and the personalities at our dining room tables.
I love that. Oh, and again, that's I don't want to say anything about the book, but like there is that moment of the dining table at the end of the book that is quite lovely, and how maybe it's not the dining table that anyone expected, but it is, you know, it is a beautiful one. I would love to be at your dining table any day, and I would love to welcome you both anytime. We're on the East Coast, but I know you're on the West Coast. And quickly, just tell us, so you both live in the Pacific Northwest. You both live in the Seattle area, correct? but or
well, we both were for well, actually the majority of writing 1, 2, and 3. I've now moved to Idaho.
okay.
We still we go back and forth all the time, and let's just say it's a good thing that we don't get charged for FaceTime.
I love that. So let's talk about setting this book in the Bay Area. What made you choose this particular location for the book?
Well, we both have, close connections to that area. I went to school there. Alli was in school there. It's easy for a community to sort of have that Carly Simon, I think, moment. You're so vain. I bet you think this song is about you. A lot of people think this book is about them. If we set it in Seattle, then people would be like, are they talking about school where they once worked together? And we didn't want the funness of it, the things we revealed, to get lost in any of that. We want everyone to feel like they could read it. Oh, are they talking about me? And we love the Bay Area. It's an amazing part of the country. I think it's probably one of the only other places I would live besides where I grew up here in Seattle. So we're so intimately connected to the Bay Area. We decided to use that as our setting.
Yeah, I was there for 20 years. I mean, I worked in public schools, private schools, all parts of the Bay. Asha was so in your 20s and 30s are so formative. Like, I got married and had kids when I was older. So, I really grew up there. Asha went to college there, which is always formative, met her husband at Berkeley. So there's a real grounding in who we are and who we became as women because of our time there in California. So the combination of that, plus just wanting it removed so people focused on the story and the characters and not the gossip. We kind of learned well from Maria Semple's Where'd You Go, Bernadette, when that came out. I mean, and she had a young daughter in private schools in Seattle. It was like, that's all anyone talked about. And we just did not want that scenario.
Excellent. That's a smart thing to keep in mind. Ladies, before I let you go, what are you working on now?
Oh, well, we're going to push send hopefully on Monday to our editor of our book number 3.
Which has really huge news behind it that we can't share yet, like huge.
Yes, but when we get to share, we hope we get to come on again and tell you, Jenna. That was another super fun, just a labor of love.
Oh my God, so fun.
An opportunity for us to examine commonly held stereotypes about connections between people of the same culture. And how nobody's a monolith of their own culture, that there are various points of view and ways of thinking even within a culture. So again, just trying to explore some of the hard things and having a lot of fun with it. Boy, I love the third book coming out. I love it so much. I can't wait for you to read it.
And there's a lot more men in the third book. So, and generationally, different generations of men. So that was a great, and we have the whole immigrant experience in there. So it was really fun and a new challenge for us to take on the voice of multiple men. And so we're hoping that one.
There's a lot of men in this book, though. And I think you also do really, again, the teenage boy, like, you can tell, Asha, that you have teenage boys, because that was like word for word. Yeah. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, like one of my friends who has I'm in the stage where most of my friends are have little ones, but one of my friends has my writing colleague has a son in his 20s and a daughter in her mid 20s, and I was like, oh yeah, this could be the like that. Like, these are actual conversations I've had with him that, I'm like, this is exactly what I get when I'm like, how are you? What's going on in your life? Tell me everything. Like,
all right. Good.
Like,
And then right now we're in that phase, I call it, where like the jeans are too tight and are so uncomfortable, we're like 7 chapters in on our 4th book. That Asha always has faith it'll get there, and I whine. I don't know. I think we've lost it. Maybe so we're in these very like 3 distinct phases of pushing this baby out into the world, pushing book 3 to our editor, and then freaking tight jeans on another one.
Allie's always, oh no, underconfident. And I'm always, oh, sure, we got this, overconfident. So again, together we hit that happy spot in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Sure you will. I have no doubt. One last question before you go. What is your ideal friend day or maybe weekend together? How would you spend your time together?
Has she already made me mac and cheese?
There. I think we should start there.
I think we would be eating poolside. We went to Scottsdale to do some writing.
We got nothing done.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, we looked super cute with our legs dangling in the pool and our giant hats on so that we can make sure we protect our skin.
But we did nothing.
And we didn't do any writing.
No, none.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good. Poolside, mac and cheese.
We had big intentions, minimal execution.
Yeah.
Film contract in hand next time, and and we wish you the best. This was such a great chat. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to our producer Julie Gerstenblatt, who is holding it down backstage for us. And from all of us, pick up Never Meant to Meet You. It will brighten your day, brighten your outlook on life a little, maybe reaffirm your faith in humanity just a bit, which I think is what you guys are going for. And you are certainly doing it. Thank you so much, Alli and Asha, for being here today. I'm Jenna Paone, and we will see you next time on Lit Chat.